This week we're talking about surface level individual differences and their impact on leadership. So surface level, we're talking about things that you see with the naked eye. So differences in age and sex or gender and race. And these are important because we all have implicit theories of leadership that affect how we react to the leadership process. So what does that mean, implicit theories of leadership? Well, we've been talking about explicit theories of leadership. Okay, when we talk about transformational leadership or authentic leadership, these are explicit theories that have been written out and tested empirically and that we discuss and develop a shared understanding of. But implicit theories are unstated theories, that within us we have a naive theory about what a leader looks like and what a leader should act like. And part of what affects that are perhaps unconscious beliefs about race and sex and age and how they relate to leadership. So there's really interesting studies on implicit associations that show that people tend to have preferences for certain groups, and we have attitudes that imply that we think that people with certain characteristics are better leaders. Okay, and we can probably name those things. These are the stereotypes that we know are at work in people. What's interesting is that these stereotypes often operate at an unconscious level, at a preconscious level, and yet they still affect our judgment and our actions. So why is there a glass ceiling? Why do we see a disproportionate number of women and people of racial minorities rise up to leadership positions? Part of it, and I'm just saying part, could be these implicit theories, these snap judgments we make about people based on their surface characteristics. And we see this play out in some very interesting and odd ways. So, for instance, you can fairly accurately predict the winner in a political election by comparing the two candidates' heights. The candidate who is taller wins a disproportionate number of the time. And perhaps that's because we have implicit theories of what a leader looks like, and that we think that a taller person is more likely to be a leader, or that a man is more likely to be a leader, or that a white man is more likely to be a leader. And I'm not saying that these theories are accurate. What I'm saying is that they affect our judgments, and so we have to be aware of these things. Now, there's ways that we can overcome this, and Malcolm Gladwell has a really interesting book called Blink, where he looks at our snap judgments. And in one area of his book, he was describing how, I think it was in Melbourne, Australia, their symphony orchestra, they noted that all of the first chair performers were men. And they wondered, well, why is this? Are men naturally better at playing instruments? And what happened is eventually they developed a system where the people judging the people competing for first chair could not see those who performed. The people who performed behind a screen. And what happened, miraculously or not so miraculously, is that women began to win first chair at a rate that was unprecedented, because snap judgments and implicit theories could not play a role in these judgments. So I think it's important that we think about what are our stereotypes of what a leader looks like, and that we develop processes to overcome those stereotypes that we have. Now, this is another thing that I want to point out is that our stereotypes often affect who we point to and say, that's a leader, or that's not a leader. And that process has to do with leadership emergence, where we look around us and say, well, who amongst us is a leader? And again, our implicit theories often are inaccurate and point to people based on stereotypes, and people emerge to leadership positions based on what they look like. Okay? Another interesting thing that predicts whether a person is identified by others as a leader or emerges as a leader is how much they talk. In social psychology of group dynamics, they've looked at small groups and monitored their verbal interactions and to see how they related to who was identified within the group as a leader. And what they found, there's a very strong correlation between the number of words uttered by an individual and whether that person is identified by others as a leader. And what's interesting, it doesn't matter what that person was saying, whether it was something that was very smart or something that was not very smart. It was just the number of words that the person uttered that predicted whether or not they would be identified as others as a leader. But that's the process of leader emergence, and it's an important thing to consider, because to be a leader you have to be identified by others as leaders. But there are invalid things that lead people to think that's a leader. And so we have to talk about these things and find processes to overcome them so that we can identify leaders who will truly be effective leaders, not just people who we think will be effective leaders. Well, I hope you're having a good week. Please contact me whenever you have questions. I look forward to talking to you soon. Bye now.